Welcome back. So this week is week 9, and it's into our second grading period. And we're going to be focusing once again on this year of slavery. Now, we've already started this process by examining the voyage of a slave from capture to auction. And if we think about what happened here in Africa, how the slaves were captured, they traveled all the way across the ocean. This area right here, it's called the Middle Passage. Very important word to understand what the Middle Passage was. This is where their journey was taking place. And all the way to the auction block, which was in North America. We can also see that slaves were distributed all throughout South America as well. And so our focus is going to be on what continues to happen with the slaves. So in this process, you guys will be reconstructing your own illustrations, your own posters. And then we're going to focus on what's called the themes of slavery. With the themes of slavery, we have the lack of family relationships. And we're going to see how slaves are auctioned off, how their families are broken up. We'll also see the theme of racial inferiority, how slaves were considered and why. If you go back to the video that you watched prior to taking your quiz, it talks about how this idea was established that people of color were going to be lesser than white people. So we want to examine that. That brings up the whole origins of racism. Why is it that we have racism still in our culture? And where were the origins? Where did that begin to take place? Where did that begin to take shape? And we could trace it all the way back to what was going on in Africa with the slave trade. We'll look at the whole concept of lack of freedom. We can see various images where slaves are chained. They're not allowed to go anywhere. As we continue to look at slavery, we're going to see that slaves had codes. They cannot leave their residence. They cannot leave wherever they were. So there was a very clear lack of freedom for these slaves. And as we continue to examine that, we're going to see it comes in many shapes and forms. We will also take a look at the violence. Okay? This violence wasn't just the type of violence where people think of people being beaten, which was very common, but for females, the type of violence that was incurred for females, the sexual violations or rapes, things like that occurred. So these are all very sensitive themes, but we want to focus on them because we want to understand this is what happened in our country. We can't cover it up. These are things that occurred in our country, and hopefully by learning more about it, we can move forward and make sure that these type of things don't happen again. So for this particular week, our focus is on once again, on the journeys of the slave. We'll focus on the origins of racism, and we'll focus on the 4 themes of slavery. Hope you have a good week. We want to put all this together. Within the next week, we'll be having a quiz.